Yes, welcome to the Shortway Show. It is 7 p.m. on the East Coast, so you got to look at my mug. That's just the rules. I make the rules and then enforce them, I guess. I don't know. I don't care. It's 7 p.m. You're watching me, and that's all that matters. So I'm happy that you're here with me this evening. I really do appreciate it. And as always, if you like what I'm bringing, if you think it's cool, then do the right thing and click that like or hate or smile or hug or whatever button you want to click. But click that button. It does matter. It gets us moving around in the algorithms, in the algorithms. It is important. Let's make that happen. Today, I want to talk about something that I don't always directly speak about. I speak about it often in conceptually, kind of the ideas, but not always directly, not always specifically. And that is actually libertarianism. So I said, you know what? I might want to bring on the guy who literally has Libertarianism.com. So I've done so, and I brought in the man himself, the president of the Advocates for Self-Government. That is Mike Sertic. How are you, sir?
I am doing well. Great to be here, Larry. Thanks.
Yes, happy to have you here. And for those who don't know, you will often see me say, hey, why don't you head over to theadvocates.org, or why don't you head over to Libertarianism.com? Yes, this guy runs it. So if you hate it, you can yell at him. I'm kidding, yell at me. But if you love it, you can also...
you can yell at me too. We love to hear your feedback, although we appreciate constructive feedback and not just the sort of feedback we get like from, progressives or authoritarians and just you guys suck. That's not particularly helpful. So
yes. So if you don't like something, saying how you'd like it to change kind of would be better than just, hey, you guys suck. Yeah, I agree. Yes, absolutely. That would be much better. So I appreciate that. But the thing that I enjoy about the Advocates and about Libertarianism.com is that it provides a place for people who are saying, what the heck is this libertarianism stuff? Besides just going to the places that very often speak only about economics. Not that libertarian economics isn't important. It is. Absolutely. It does matter. But it isn't the only aspect of libertarianism. And actually, it isn't the core of it. If that makes a sense, right? It makes sense. It isn't the core. So I think the idea of libertarianism.com kind of goes to the core of it. Am I getting it right?
Yeah, I mean, we do talk about, I believe we have one or two courses that get into economics and like public choice economics and things like that. There will be more to come because one of the things we've learned by offering the world's smallest political quiz for many, many years, decades now, is that people generally, the American public is economically illiterate. So that content is necessary and that education is desperately needed. But we decided that with libertarianism.com, we didn't want to put the emphasis on economics.
Right.
We wanted to start with foundations and principles. And so the way that I look at it is like, let's talk about moral philosophy, moral principles, and go from there. What is it that we as human beings want? There's certain fundamental principles and things that we all want, we all desire, and let's build up a philosophy from there. And that's what we're attempting to do, and make the ideas and concepts, I think, more inclusive, but also more accessible to people, and hopefully, build up a lot of those ideas and get people interested from what really matters to them, and not just abstract economic laws and principles that, a lot of libertarians like us, we care about.
Right.
But maybe not the best place to start with most folks.
And that's what I like, right? And people often ask me when I'm sitting with my policy team, people say, how do you come up with these policies, right? Because I came up with rules, right? And if I have rules on my policies, then I can then create policies, right? Because what I often tell people is creativity comes from limitations, right? I only have X dollars. I only have Y time. I only have this talent, this skill set. It's all I got. So how can I get what I want with what I have, right? So if you give yourself that moral paradigm, right? From that comes the economic policies that we're talking about, that, right? From that comes the political philosophy, comes all from that moral philosophy as its core. But if you don't have it in the core, I feel like that's what's the old saying? If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I studied econ in college. That's what I got my degree in, and I've forgotten so much of it. But there's certain principles and aspects of it that you do learn. And one of the very first principles is that we live in a world of scarce resources. What is the most effective way to allocate those resources? And how can we do that? Libertarianism adds, how can we do that because economics, they tried to separate normative ideas, which is prescription, this is the way it should be, and focus on the positive. It's very scientific. But obviously we live in a world in which people want things and desire things. So we as libertarians add look at those economic policies from a normative aspect and try to build systems that are going to, usually lead to the most people being the best off. And also without doing it by breaking certain moral rules that we as libertarians adhere to, which is minimizing the use of coercion against other people and minimizing things like property violations and so forth.
There we go. Ryan brings up, I think I got it wrong. Ryan says, Hatebreed said, stand for something or you'll die for nothing. Hardcore brand. That's true. Yes, absolutely. 100%. Yes. The scientific libertarian says, libertarians can't be scientific. That's ridiculous. Ooh, yeah, that's cute. That's very cute. I like that one. So a couple of people are mentioning a couple of things which I like, which is, if I can do this here. Daniel says, I never even knew that such a website existed. Go figure. I love that. Desiree says, libertarianism is my way of life. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I love that. Tom's giving me a shout out. He says, I hope you know how much Larry gives you a shout out. There we go. So I'm doing my job. Absolutely. Yes. So, and Joe is listening from Florida. So that's great. So what I want to do is I want to kind of show a little bit about the site, right? If I could. And I want to bring up the thing that I enjoyed most about it when I first saw it, right? When I first saw the site, what I noticed is off the bat, it talks about the philosophy of human respect. Again, not that there aren't economic issues. As you go down, we talk about moral issues. You can see there, environmental progress, self-organization, personal growth, political economy, right? It's all there, right? Rational thinking, economic concepts, just like you talked about. But the crazy thing here is economic concepts isn't the first class, right? Because if you don't get to the first part, which is the human respect part, then you can't really get behind the economic part, right? I mean, because you have to get the core first, which is actually the craziest thing, which is just you got to respect other people before you can make that movement. And most people will tell you, and this is a problem that we have in the movement in general. The average non-libertarian, when you talk about libertarians, they always go to, oh, you guys are the selfish people, right? That's where they go to. And I keep saying to myself, we're the ones who aren't, right? We're the ones who aren't. It's almost like they're all projecting on themselves on us. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. I think that, I do think that our critics often put up straw man arguments and they do try to call us selfish and self-centered. In my own experience, having interacted with hundreds, if not thousands of libertarians over the years, we're a very compassionate. I'm sorry. Yeah, libertarians are an interesting bunch. You have a collection of people that I don't know if it's all that different from the rest of humanity, right? You do have your odd folks in the liberty movement. You do have your people that are very analytical, the types that do care about economic policy, and they could spend hours and hours going into the nuances of Austrian economic theory and these sorts of things. Yeah. But I also have a lot of friends and experience with libertarians that are very compassionate, huge-hearted people. And they are libertarians because they fundamentally recognize how coercion, whether it's government or corporate or business, these different aspects of coercion into people's lives fundamentally reduce their happiness, harmony, and prosperity. And we as libertarians reject the initiation of coercion in all aspects of our lives, including through the ballot box or democratic voting, those sorts of things. So any policy that's going to expropriate wealth or resources from one group of people and then transfer it to another group of people, libertarians tend to reject because that's initiation of coercion. What we say instead is we've got to find voluntary, peaceful solutions to solve these problems, and that we have enough faith in humanity that we can actually find these solutions if enough people just say, stop, the status quo isn't working. We're actually just putting incentives in all the wrong places and harming far too many people. Let's give freedom a shot. Let's give nonviolence and peace a shot.
I love it.
And see what happens. So
for those of you who want to check it out, you can click that link there. The link is in the description. Check out libertarians.com. I'll talk about a little bit more in a couple seconds. So if you want to head over there, please. And of course, I'm going to ask you. I ask you every single time. I'm not going to stop. Please like, comment, and share. Hit that like button. Put in a comment and share it. Let people know we're talking about nice, positive. This is warm. This is the Warm and Fuzzy show. Come on. This is the Warm and Fuzzy show. Like the kids could watch. Well, the kids would be bored. Anyway, but in theory, the kids could watch this. In theory, it's the nice Warm and Fuzzy show. So like, comment, share, and please check out libertarians.com. Again, it's free. Check it out. If you want to buy the cool merch, there is cool merch. If you want to buy it, you can buy it, or take the courses, get the points, and get it with points. It's fine. Either way, the goal is still the goal. Either way, if you want to do it. Shelley brings out something else. She says, in my experience, John Q. Public thinks we're a bunch of potheads. I hate that stereotype. And I think most people on the right think we're much more like the pothead type. And most people on the left think we're much more like the selfish guy, which goes to your other point, which I love you brought up. Coercion isn't just from government. Coercion's also from businesses and corporations. And I think most people who think we're the selfish type, they think we love corporations when that's not true.
Yeah, I mean, especially in recent years where you have very large multinational corporations that have essentially monopolistic positions of market power. They seem to be taking advantage of consumers, right? And unfortunately, they're oftentimes the ones that have. There's a concept in economics going back to econ. That's what I think. That's one of the reasons why so many libertarians pay close attention to economics, because once you understand it, it explains so much about political economy and how the world actually works. But there's this concept in econ called regulatory capture, that these businesses and corporations, once they establish certain positions, which they may have gained through creating great services and products, but eventually they start to lobby government for one reason or another in order to maintain and cement their position of market power and to reduce competition against within their industry. And so,
I just heard Eric, Edward puts out, I heard the day that we're just Republican light. I hear that one too, right? Republican light. Yes. Jonathan says it's easier to assign a dismissive stereotype than to wonder why someone rashly disagrees with you. Yes, yes, and yes. That's 100% true, right? Let's just dismiss these crazy libertarians as selfish or potheads or Republican light, and we can now ignore them now and go back to thinking the way we've always thought. Right.
Yeah, there's that element to it. And then, I assume that most of your audience by now has probably taken the world's smallest political quiz. And if you look at the Nolan chart, you can score as a libertarian and you can be on the liberal side. You can score and be on the conservative side. The way that I think about it is you can come to libertarianism from a more moderate centrist position. You can come from the left or the right. It's really dependent on the personal values that you have. So if I came from the left, it may mean that, I was raised, because most of us get our values in the household. We get it through school, etc. And so maybe I care about equity and equality and these sorts of, a level playing field. And maybe I care about the environment or, all this sort of stereotypical leftist things that we associate with their moral foundations. But when I make that transition to understanding libertarianism, I can still hold all those values and be a libertarian. As a libertarian, it fundamentally just means that I reject the initiation of coercion, and I don't endorse government politicians or third-party agents to impose my values on other people in any form or fashion, and that includes through the ballot box. So once you make that connection, you can, I think, have mutual respect for people who are conservatives who don't hold your values, as long as they are agree not to impose their values on you. We can all live together as long as we don't use third-party agents to force other people's positions on us.
Absolutely. Sam says, I found the website through Larry's YouTube channel. Oh, YouTube worked for me. Yes. The videos were to the point and informative. I love it. Well, there we go. So you're winning, Mike. See that? There we go. You're winning. Desiree says, Sam, same. So Desiree also found it through the YouTube page. So we're YouTube and it's working. I love it. That's awesome. But you brought up a word, though, that I kind of want to talk about here, and it's the word is coercion, right? I think most people understand what violence is as a general rule, right? There's obviously even layers to that, but I think most people get what violence is, or even, you know, hitting someone over the head or pointing a gun at someone, right? We kind of get that. Yeah. But coercion is a little bit different, right? Coercion isn't just do it or I'll shoot you, right? It's a lot of stuff. How do you handle that, I guess, gray area or area that can sometimes be confusing?
Can you add a little bit more context to what you mean by that, as far as how do I handle what?
In other words, someone says, I'm not putting a gun to your head or something like that. And you're like, yeah, but you don't have to only put a gun to my head, right? There are other ways of coercing someone to do something, right? And I guess my other worry is, and I have it too, I deal with it when I'm creating policy, I deal with talking to people. At what point does persuasion become coercion, right? Where's that line? And to be forward, I don't think that's an easy answer, but but it's a challenge, right? At what point am I, the example I guess I'll give is like, wearing a mask, right? People would say, well, it's not, a mandate because you don't have to wear it. You just don't have to ever go out to eat, right? So is that coercion or no? Is that really just involuntarism because each company can make their own decision, but they might get yelled at by the government? But do you see where my point is?
I do see what you're saying. I think first of all, the way that I think about these things is I look at who it is that's doing the supposed coercion, or the coercion. Is it government, or is it from the private sector or a private individual? Because if it's the government, they're in a very unique position, right? They have a monopoly over the legitimate use of coercion in society, which means that they can legitimately send agents after you and put you in a cage, and you don't really have any say in the matter. If it's a private individual or the private sector, that's a different story.
Right.
And so, obviously there are attacks and critiques that come from the left in some instances, or the right, saying, what have we seen recently in terms of the right is very critical over big tech and censorship. And even libertarians, by the way, are very critical. You do get some libertarians who still claim that, well, these are private companies, but they don't act like private companies.
Right.
In fact, they appear to be acting more like cartels in a way in which they're almost colluding to censor certain viewpoints and positions. And so that's a different.
I'm totally with you on this. And my point, I think, is I look at coercion as the power dynamic, right? Does someone really have power over you, right? So, for example, I'm going to use a joke, right? Just to make it clear. If some 3-year-old kid says, give me candy or I'll kill you, you're 3. You're not killing me. You just want candy. There's no coercion there. You're 3. I'm not worried about that, right? But if you're maybe, I don't know, 6'8", 300-pound wrestler, and you go, give me candy or I'll beat you up, you might really beat me up. So like, I really got to worry about that. Now that's coercion, right? So it's a whole different world. It's a power dynamic, right? If I actually have the power to do something, I feel like that to me is closer to that. Ryan brings up a point. He says, coercion example, mask mandate for restaurants or lose their liquor license. So I guess his point is, I'm not shutting you down. you can still run your restaurant, but you can't have a liquor license, which is probably half of your profits. You're going to go out of business. But I'm not shutting you down.
Right. And again, in that instance, that mandate is coming from presumably government officials, right?
Right. Sure.
And so, libertarians have been criticizing and arguing against those sorts of mandates from the government all along. It does get, I think, trickier from a philosophical perspective.
Sure.
Of consistency when it's coming from within the private sector. And certain companies have very massive market power, but there again, I would say in a free market, you would have entrepreneurs who would be working to cater to the needs and demands of people who were being, whether in this case, talking about big tech and these companies silenced or censored. You see that now, I think, in a lot of like the crypto space.
Sure, absolutely.
Emerging technology and ways to circumvent this. But again, you have organizations like the SEC trying to crack down on a lot of these new innovations in blockchain technology in trying to advance what I would say is a very libertarian technology and innovation.
The SEC drives me nuts. And the reason why it drives me nuts is it's supposed to be the watchdog for the financial industry, but it's actually just a Praetorian Guard for the financial elites. That's really what it is.
Yeah.
Right? That's what it actually is. It's supposed to be something amazing and great, but it totally isn't. But I want to bring up something here, if I could. There's a part in the classes I want to bring up, if I could, for a second, which it's maybe controversial, right? This is the moral foundations and liberal values piece. And it's talking about ancient echoes and the golden rule. And what it brings up, hold on if I can go here. What it actually brings up, yeah. If you can see this, it's a YouTube video about the golden rule. Some music, but it's basically just telling you about the golden rule, which most people think is a great thing. I hear it all the time, right? It's across all religions. Here, this is from Judaism. And it goes on to show, from all of the religions, right? This is Buddhism. So people got to say, well, the golden rule is awesome. It's in like every religion, every background, right? This is Islam. So it's a critical piece that everyone should be following. And here it's Sikhism. I mean, they found every religion that, is out there of the major ones, and that there's some kind of golden rule in all of them, right? Basically the idea of do unto others as you would have them do unto you, right there. There we go. Christianity, it's the one I know, right? Of course, being Christian, that's the one I know. But, whatever your religion is, you probably know that too, right? So, and the reason why I bring this up is, while this is wonderful, obviously, right? However, I would argue that you can use the golden rule to validate coercion. Now, I know it's controversial, but I want to bring this up because if I say do unto others as I would have done upon myself, then I assume that you want what I want. So I assume that it's okay for me to impose things on you because everybody wants them. And so there's a fringe guy who doesn't want them. I'm hurting the one fringe guy. Everybody else wants what I want. So I should be able to enforce my views upon you. And I would go to the platinum rule, which is do unto others as they want to be done upon, whether or not I would want them to do it to me or not, right? Mm-hmm. So I think there is a rule that's stronger than the golden rule. And I would argue that real libertarianism at its core actually goes to the platinum rule, which is you do you, right? The idea that says you may not like it, but it's all right. It's fine. You do you. Am I off on that?
No, I actually think that that's a very valid critique. And I think it's something that maybe we'll have to talk more about and see if we can't incorporate maybe we could even create a 1 minute and 30-second video on Larry Sharp's platinum rule.
I like it.
I do like that. Now, one thing that we do touch on is one of the very first courses that we were requiring people to take in order to advance, and we no longer require it. But it was basically the foundations on the philosophy of human respect.
Yep.
And I think that actually touches on some of the issues that you were just raising, because we do recognize that that all people have certain desires, and one of those things is that nobody wants to have to be a victim of violence. Nobody wants to have their stuff taken from them.
Yep.
And that when those things befall someone, they're always made worse off.
Absolutely.
Our prosperity and happiness is always diminished when we're victims of violence and we have our stuff taken from us. And
Absolutely.
so that kind of goes to a recognition of basically almost, you could practically call it, for all intents and purposes, a law of human nature. And so we tried to apply that law that applies to all people across all time, with virtually no exceptions, that philosophy of human respect. And if we start from that, and if we can gain agreement on that, then we can, upon that as a foundation, that we can build a philosophy. And that's what we try to do at libertarianism.com. So we'll take a closer look at the platinum rule.
But you actually did something close. See, I'm giving a nudge, but I'm also going to save you too, because right after the next one talks about the harm principle, which is close to the platinum rule, right? Michael says platinum rule, live and let live. Oh yes, Michael, you are correct. Yes, but this is the one right afterwards. You talk about the harm principle. Let me cover that one too. See if I can get this one to go. There we go.
In his book On Liberty, John Stuart Mill argues for one simple principle, the harm principle. It amounts to this: the state, my neighbors, and everyone else should let me get on with my life as long as I don't harm anyone in the process.
Yep.
One way of thinking of this is my freedom to swing my fist ends at the tip of your nose. If I don't have dependents, I should be free to drink myself to an early death, live as an eccentric, or explore alternative lifestyles, as long as no one else is damaged in the process. Paternalism is okay towards children, they need protecting, but never towards adults who are of sound mind. So let me get on with my experiment.
So the issue I have here, obviously, right, is there are two parts there. Clearly that sounds good, but there are a couple parts there. One of them is, he says, if I don't have dependents. So does that mean coercion or the government or someone should be able to push someone if they have dependents? And the second thing he says is of sound mind. Who decides who's of sound mind, right? So I think the concepts are good, but I think still there has to be someone who says, okay, you know what? Larry Sharp's had it. He's gone. We need someone to help him out, right? He is no longer of sound mind. Someone step in and take care of him, right? And then maybe she's like the Britney Spears famous one, right? Where someone's running Britney Spears' life and she's a 20-some-odd-year-old woman and someone's still running her life through a conservatorship. Or we have something where, the reverse, where you're forced to do things through, say, like a family court because you have dependents and you're punished to do things that maybe you should or shouldn't do. Am I making it too gray for you, Mike? I'm sorry, but I just think it's interesting concepts.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the soundness of mind, I think that you got to have a presumption of sanity or soundness of mind, because that could be a slippery slope if you're going after someone on that basis. So there's got to be, I think, a preponderance of evidence. And in a libertarian society, I mean, I'm not sure. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an attorney, so I don't know how that's currently handled in a court of law today. Through what sort of means testing occurs in order to assess someone's sanity.
Right.
I can usually identify somebody who clearly is insane, but sometimes it is a gray area, and usually even people that are eccentric or strange, I'm not going to label as insane without any very strong or clear evidence to do so.
Yeah. So this is kind of more like the harm principle is kind of close to the platinum rule. It's kind of like, let me do myself. I'll do whatever. If I want to run around naked, then why do you care? Type thing, right?
Mhm.
But there is a rule for children, right? Which also becomes tough, right? At what point, the reason why I bring up family court is family court will often do something which to me drives me crazy. And that is something like they will force a parent, wife or husband, to pay for their kids' college. Not that I'm against you paying for your college. If you're going to pay for your kids' college, please pay for your kids' college. I mean, it's your money, your family, do as you see fit. But now law has come in and said that one adult must pay for another adult. When you go to college, you're 18, 19, and 20 and 21. Why is a court forcing you to pay for an adult? Right? And I think that, in my view, is actually coercion. You should pay for your kids' college because you want to pay for your kids' college, not because some court forces you to pay for another adult. Am I off on this?
Absolutely. I agree 100% with that.
Yeah. And I feel like once we start giving the courts the ability to, and this is where I'm going from this, the ability to deal with dependents, that was my worry, right?
Mhm.
Then courts decide who's dependent, who's not, and they just don't stop. My biggest issue is they talk about slippery slope. Man, we see it in a lot of areas, to include family court, but many other areas. But some people don't know this. I don't mean to be focusing on family court, but because of the dependent thing, it got me going on this one, right? It's a pet peeve of mine. If you say, for example, for those of you who don't know this, if you made, say, $100,000 in your life at one point, that was your high point of how much money you made, $100,000 a year. Good for you. Awesome. Glad. Hope you make that all the time. Now, the court will say you have to pay child support based upon $100,000 a year. You go, yeah, that's great, but I lost my job, or my industry is gone now, right? 20 years, your industry goes away, or my company left my state, or whatever the case, I can't make that kind of money anymore. The court says, too bad, do it. How does a court have a right to say that? If I had stayed married to my wife, I mean, I'm not divorced, but assuming that I got divorced, I don't have to have a job at all. Court won't even get mad at me. I can lay around, just go on public assistance. Court won't be mad at all, right? Because as long as I'm still married, I can literally just go on public assistance. Court goes, whatevs. The second I get divorced, I have to make $100,000 a year. Oh my God. So while I like the idea of that, I do worry about the family court sometimes and government being involved even within the family. So I like what he's saying. The paternalism piece kind of triggered me a little bit. If that makes any sense. Did I go too far on this one?
No, I think that's a valid critique.
Yes, I think we do want to care about minors. Absolutely. We do want to care about children. But what winds up happening, I think you saw it in our school system too, is you wind up, if you see it going too far to where now the government basically controls our kids. And the government can say what's right for the kids, and the parents' rights just go away. We see it in schooling. We see it in education, right? I heard a story. I forgot where I heard this story. I can't remember where I heard it, but some video I was watching, and someone says that a parent wanted to come and get their kid from school or something like that. And the person says, oh yeah, well, you can't go because you have to, make an appointment. And then they say whatever. And he's like, no, it's my kid. I'm going to go get my kid at school. No, you can't do it. What? You can't do it. So you don't have a choice. Like, wow. Okay. The school, that's not my kid. It's the government's kid. And I just get to watch him. Right. But it's the government's kid. It's not my kid anymore. So I went a little long on that, but that's a little pet peeve of mine.
No, and I guess my response to a lot of the objections that you're raising or critiques is that one of the things that we intend to do at libertarianism.com is to roll out more courses that get much more nuanced into some of the issues that you're describing. So one of the things that I envision that I've been talking about with my coworkers at the Advocates and the folks working the team on libertarianism.com is that we want to create courses that address issues, for instance, on education. So we would have an entire course focused on free market solutions in education, what we can do in order to actually improve access and outcomes to all students in order to make sure that they're getting a well-rounded good education, but not a one-size-fits-all education as we currently see in the public school system. Likewise with courts and law, I envision that we'll be diving much deeper into some of those elements too. And by the way, this is probably a good point to bring up. If anybody in your audience has any thoughts about a subject matter or courses that they would like to see that are not currently on the site, we're always looking at and listening to suggestions and feedback from folks who are participating.
Well, the reason why I brought this up too is why I absolutely love the courses and the videos, as Sam said he does too, is because they're reasons to have conversations and think of what we just talked about. Because the reality of it is the current system is not perfect. And even having a heavily libertarian-based system still is not going to be perfect, right? There's no perfect system. Still, people are going to have problems. People are going to have all types of issues. That's still going to happen. But man, we can make it a whole lot better if we just base it upon the idea of mutual respect. And it seems to make sense, right? Like if you just told someone, wouldn't our world be better if we just based it upon mutual respect? No one goes, no, that's stupid, right? Everyone will go, yeah, that sounds great. And then we don't do it.
I mean, you do have cynical people that immediately will cast aspersions and say, oh, well, you're just utopian, you're idealistic. And my response to that is absolutely not. I went through my idealistic libertarian phase in my early years. And so I recognize that any system, any philosophy built that includes human beings, the building blocks of that philosophy or system has fundamental flaws. As human beings, we have character defects in certain aspects in our human nature that we need to recognize and be aware of. And I actually think that libertarianism and a philosophy of human respect does a damn good job of taking account of those things. It's part of the reason why libertarians are so skeptical about power and the distribution of power and government, is because far too many bad actors ascend into power. They gravitate toward it. And they get into these positions of power in order to basically flex their will on other people. And we see that all the time, unfortunately.
Absolutely. Our friend Jim says, how many courses do we need to take to get a Larry Sharpe mug? You don't have to take any. You can just head over and purchase one if you like. So yes,
I should be using my Larry Sharpe mug right now. It's
there we go. Yes, I was set. I was ready just in case. Nice. But by the way, just in case you guys want some cool Larry Sharpe stuff, a little bit, if I could, you can head over to LarrySharpe.com/shop. There's a link there, and there's all new Larry Sharpe merch too. That's not free though. You got to pay for that. Why? I'm running for governor. Costs money. So yes. So when it comes to that, you got to pay for that. So, but it's good. Larry Sharpe merch is now available. You can get yard signs, car magnets for those of you who are gig people and put a car magnet on, a Larry Sharpe on there. All cool stuff there. Women's shirts, male shirts. You can enjoy if you want to. Absolutely. But no matter what, if you're liking the conversation, if you think it's valuable, then like it, comment, and share. Any click you make is going to help our algorithm. Please do that. And the site we're talking about tonight is, of course, Libertarianism.com. Click that link, go there, sign up, watch a video too. They're short. The video's like 2 minutes and less. Like a couple of them like 3 minutes long, but most of them are very short. A couple quizzes. And what's going to happen is a couple of the questions are going to be grossly simple. You're like, okay, got it. Then there's going to be one you're not sure on. And they don't let you get by unless you get all of them right. So you got to go back. So you think you're super smart. You might not be. So you might not be. You might get one or two wrong. So as you go through it, it's very interesting and fun stuff. And if I could, I want to bring up one of the first ones, which I love. For those of you who don't know, literally the first video is not about how to be a libertarian or whatever. It's the pursuit of happiness. That's the first video. This is libertarianism. I thought we're either Republican light, or we're hippies, or we're selfish, or we're all those things. Well, I would ask you, what Democrat, what Republican is talking about the pursuit of happiness? They're not. Democrats are yelling, Republicans are evil and Trump's going to kill you. And Republicans are yelling, Democrats are evil and socialism is going to kill you. Well, we're talking about happiness. So this is real fast. Look, a few minutes. It's not even. It's a minute long. First lesson. What do you want? And no one judges you. You want joy, fulfillment. Of course you do. Of course. Look at this. Many ways to get there. We all want to be happy. That's crazy, right? Now, when I look now at what we're doing now, the policies that we have now, the talks that we have now, I don't see anyone talking about building a new society of happiness. We're talking about building a society, a new world order that is the order that the left or the right wants. That makes half of our country, probably half our world, unhappy. We are building a world that makes one side happy and the other side way unhappy. This is the answer, and this is libertarianism. Mike, I don't know if you're a part of this. I know you put us together, but were you part of making this the first video? I love, by the way. I think that amazing. This is the first video, but were you part of that?
So I wasn't. I saw the initial script and some of the writing. Actually, my colleague Max Borders was the one who pieced that together in collaboration with myself and a few other colleagues, as well as Chris Rufer, who's on the board of the Advocates for Self-Government. Very big and passionate about talking about happiness as the central motivator and sort of the common thread that connects all lives. When you look at public rhetoric going on in mainstream media and on the left and right, they're all basically trying to appeal to the fear instinct because fear is a great motivator. And so what they want to do is they want to get you afraid of the other side trying to change your way of life, alter society in their image, and take things away from you. And unfortunately, that sells. Sells in the media, that sells in newspapers, et cetera, and that sells in elections. But we don't want to fall into that trap because honestly, we find it pretty degrading and pretty repulsive. And so what we're attempting to do with libertarianism.com is to not fall into that trap and actually try to explain to people reality, or a perspective of reality, that, look, this is the way. There are certain aspects that all of us can relate to, certain desires and motives that we all have, rather than trying to profit off of these sort of disreputable fear tactics. Let's see if we can't unite more people and get them to understand a philosophy that actually is going to lead to better outcomes, more harmony, more social harmony, and more economic prosperity for all people. So that's what we wanted to focus on. So I have to give credit to Max Borders on those videos.
I love that. That's where you begin. Now, you might be watching these videos and go, Larry, these videos, all right, 2 minutes is nice. It makes me think. It does. There's no doubt. The videos are very interesting. And I like it best because you can just think about it and say, where is the nuance here? What if I don't like what someone else's happiness is, right? What if I don't like it?
Sure.
Right? What if I think you shouldn't be smoking weed, right? I think it's bad. You should. I mean, I don't, but sake of argument, I think you shouldn't, right? There is a big difference between should and can't. And if I believe that I'm right and that you shouldn't smoke weed, I don't believe that. But if I did believe that, then I should be able to show you, here is why you shouldn't, and get you to not do it and get you to believe that I'm right. And I feel like we don't want to do that, because you bring up the other part, which is brought up so much throughout the entire series. And I'll give you a quick example of what I love about this part. You bring up in the series often the idea of agents or paying someone else to do it. And when I brought that up to people about that, they always said, well, no, we're not like hiring mercenaries and stuff. Like that's where their heads went to. Like I'm hiring some hitman from the mafia to go do stuff. And I'm like, no, that's like the FBI, the IRS. These are all agents of the government. DEC. These are all agents of the government, right? All of these are agents of the government we are paying through our taxes to do things. And I remember once I was talking to a friend of mine from another country. I think it was from Greece. And we're on my porch and we're talking. And he says, Larry, I don't really understand this libertarian thing that you do. Like he knows that I do it, but doesn't really get it, right? And I said, you know what? Okay, let me ask you a question. You see this? I live in Queens, so our houses touch, literally. So I can point to the window of my neighbor and like point right into his house, right? So I'm pointing to my neighbor and I say, if you looked in that window and you saw a guy in there and he was smoking weed, do you think morally, not legally, morally, it's okay for you to kick his door in, grab that, joint out of his mouth and lock him in a cage, beat him, lock him, put him in a cage? He went, no. I said, then why should cops do it then? Aren't cops just us? We're paying them to enforce what we would be able to do. If what we're doing is moral, shouldn't the cops doing moral things? He's like, I said, but it's saying the opposite. I'm saying not morally, but not legally, but morally. If you looked in there and you saw a guy holding a kid down with a knife up, ready to stab the kid, would it morally be okay for you to kick the door in, punch that guy in the face, grab the knife, get the kid out of there? He said, yeah, of course. I said, yeah, cops should do that too. Yes, cops should do what we would morally be able to do, that we're outsourcing for them to do because they're better trained, right? They have the resources. So they should be doing the same moral things that we would do in theory, but they're better trained. They know well, in theory, it depends on what police force you're in. But in theory, they're better trained and they're surely better equipped, but hopefully they're better trained to do the job, right? That's what we want them to do. You bring up constantly the idea that you don't want to allow someone else to do it. It is very rare that I hear that in libertarian circles. It was about I, me, us. But in libertarians.com, you bring up the idea that we use agents all the time and we don't think about it.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think you gave a classic example of the weed smoker next door that the neighbor dislikes, finds immoral, whatever the thing is, right?
Yep.
And so one of the things, so I actually just quit smoking cigarettes.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. So I know that smoking is bad for me. But I'll tell you one thing is that if somebody tried to force me to quit smoking, I would not have reacted well to that. I would have found it demeaning. I would have reacted very negatively and poorly to people trying to force me, locking me in a cage, et cetera, et cetera. It would have probably led to lifelong resentments and a hostility towards those agents or authorities. It would have had a whole host of ripple effects throughout the rest of my life. Yep. And this is not conjecture. I mean, we see this with people who have been incarcerated as a result of victimless crimes over the course of their lives and their attitudes and outlook upon police and authorities. Yeah. And so what libertarians' response is look, whether or not smoking weed or, name your drug is harmful and bad, and it may very well be, I don't know about weed, but maybe, some of these are harder drugs.
Sure.
What we do is we try to find compassionate solutions and try to offer them education, try to give them information, because I think most people know that engaging in a lot of these risky behaviors are harmful.
I don't think anybody thinks smoking cigarettes is good. Right. I don't think anyone thinks drinking until you black out is good. Right? I don't think anyone thinks that, right? People might think that lightly smoking is fine or drinking lightly is fine, but no one thinks chain smoking is good, and no one thinks drinking until you black out is good, but people do it.
And I guess my point is, look at how many voluntary smoking cessation programs are out there now. I mean, every major company at least, offers resources and tools for their employees. Yep. There's all sorts of campaigns, and some of them are publicly funded, and I don't like those. But there's no question that there are a lot of voluntary programs and resources in order to aid people to quit smoking, because we recognize the immense amount of costs and burdens associated with these consequences. And what we try to do is offer humane solutions to get people off of cigarettes and tobacco. And that's far more, and just, I think, a lot of social pressure that comes around, that comes, that, you know, attitudes and outlooks on the harms of these things, just the knowledge that we've gained. And it's far more productive and effective than trying to have a government top-down war on tobacco. And thankfully, as far as I know, people have never been incarcerated for smoking cigarettes.
Yes.
I mean, maybe
one day,
maybe if you're smoking Cuban cigars or something, I don't know.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you might. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Cuban,
yeah.
right? Yeah, because that's the evil ones.
Right.
But no, it's, you know, it's funny you bring that up, because my mom was an addict, and she basically had to hide that because it was illegal, and the stigma behind it was so bad that she basically had to hide it. I didn't care. I didn't judge her, and I helped her to the best of my ability. And that's what got her out of her situation. But, you know, smoking cigarettes, as an example, we'll go from smoking cigarettes to being an addict. Well, I guess you could call them, it depends on how you look at it, but a legal addict. How about that? Is that better? We're all addicts on something.
Because one has much more of a negative kind of criminal stigma associated with it.
Correct. I mean, there are people who are addicted to video games, right? So whatever, right? Whatever your choice, whatever your thing is, right? But if you're addicted to cigarettes, as an example, because it's not so socially negative, like to your point, there's support for you. Your family doesn't go, I can't talk to him, he's smoking cigarettes, right? They don't do that, right? It's fine. They still hang out with you, and you can get support structure. You have a chance of actually getting your life on track. But my mom was an addict. She couldn't tell anybody. She couldn't share it, right? Now, my mom eventually, well, she was a smoker, and she eventually quit smoking. But that she could share with everybody. She could tell everybody about that, right? You just told everybody about that, right? So I mean, we just do it, right? But my mom told no one about her other addiction because she couldn't. People would judge her. So if she was going to fall back into that, oh my God. So I completely agree. We want to be open. We want to make it legal. We want to let. It sounds libertarian to say it, right? I don't want to say we want to let the market do it because it sounds horrible. What I'll say is this: we want the community to be able to support you. See how nice that sounds? We want the community to be able to support you.
And we allow, you know, to bring it back to maybe more a libertarian answer, is that there are social entrepreneurs that care very much about these things. And they also see opportunities where, you know, the market has gaps in it, and they can provide resources and services that maybe don't even exist in order to help people. And that's I remember very much part of a libertarian society.
There was a charity, I've forgotten their name, but it's a charity that was going out of its way. It actually is probably early 2000s. I think they might have gone under with the crash of 2008, 2009. But I think it was early 2000s when it was a charity that actually helped people when they came out of jail from any drug related charges. And they assumed that these people could run a business because they were drug dealers. So they took people who were drug dealers, they pulled them out of jail, and they had MBAs, guys who were going to fund them, give them some training, and said, look, you're not run a business, just don't do the violent part. We have cops and courts for you, so you don't require the violence, do the business. And this was private charity. This wasn't a government program, right? Government programs put people back in jail. But the private charity actually helped them out. So I think there's the key, the piece that I really enjoy about that. I think you're completely right. Can I grab a couple of comments if you don't mind?
Yeah, you bet.
So, all right. Robert says, people like to presume that the government does their best to be just. The best example is family court. I hit a nerve with family court. Yes, I know. It's one of my pet peeves too, Rob. You know it is. If you're a non-custodial parent, people think there must be a reason for that to be the outcome. Merely suggesting that child support is a scam is taboo in most circles. That's a valid point. For those who don't know, I know it's in New York State. I assume it's in others. New York State makes money off of your child support. It goes to the state and they get a cut like a credit card company. So New York State's it's their best interest for you to pay lots of child support because then they get more money. So they made a system to where they say they do well off your misery. That's how the court works. So he's right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right. Let's see here. Grab a couple more here.
Yeah, what a perverse incentive structure.
Yes. Oh, something else. I go one step further. If they take your kid, if CPS takes your kid, the federal government gives them money. Yes, I'm not making this up. I'm saying this out loud so you understand that if I was wrong, they'd be crucifying me right now. But it's true. If they take your kid, the federal government gives them money. So they're incentivized to put your kid in foster care.
Is that just in New York? I wonder if that's also in California here where
I think that's everywhere. I'm 90% sure that part is across the country.
Okay.
I know it's New York. I know New York very well, but I'm pretty sure that's across the country. The part about getting a cut, I have no idea if that's outside of New York State, but I know that is New York State. So yes, so that is a perverse incentive. Yes, absolutely. So the incentive of family court is to make you pay a lot and take your kids. That's the incentive. And we're like, that's okay. Shelley says, weed is only ever dangerous when the war on drugs forces a dealer to lace weed with something else. Stop the war on drugs and weed is perfectly safe. Look at that. I like that. So again, government makes it bad. 100%. I like it. Yes. Edward says, he explains it. He says, it's from the Social Security Act, Title VI, I think. There we go. Yes. And then he also says it's all over. Yes, Robert says everywhere. There we go. Thank you. I thought it was everywhere, but I wasn't sure. Right? I wasn't sure. But yes, I knew it was New York State. I had a feeling it was everywhere. Yes, these are terrible incentives. I'm sorry, Mike. You didn't mean to be yelling about family court today. It's just a pet peeve of mine. And some of my people who follow me know that I'm always talking about it. So it does drive me nuts.
Thankfully, I've never encountered or experienced that. But,
yes,
my sympathies to those who have. That
absolutely
terrible.
So I want to go to one other piece if I could. And that is not all of the videos are just touchy-feely and good. Many of them are, which I like and I love, and I don't want you to stop that, Mike. Please, if you redo this, keep a lot of the touchy-feely ones. They're very good because people don't think libertarians are touchy-feely, and we are. We can be, I should say. Not we, all of us aren't, but we can be very touchy-feely.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. But here's one talking about self-organization, and this is not so touchy-feely.
In this video, we'll be talking about the process of self-organization within complex systems and the dynamic interplay between order and entropy that is thought to be required to enable it. We will firstly discuss different theories for the emergence of organization. In so doing, we will look at the first and second laws of thermodynamics.
So we don't have to go any further. If you want to see that, you can. All I'm saying is please don't think this is just touchy-feely. It is touchy-feely. And it should be, and I'm happy that it is. And there's also some hardcore stuff for you to really learn and think about here. There's a lot of good stuff at libertarians.com. It's why I bug you guys about it every time I do a show. It's why I'm always telling you to go there. It's not because I'm nuts. I mean, I am nuts. But that's not the reason why I do it. I do it because it matters. And I particularly with me running for office now, I'm all over the place. This is a great place to go. But more importantly, it's a great place for you to show your friends, your family, those who you care about, hey, libertarianism is about this too. You can go here, look at it. And if you do it with your family and friends, you can have real conversations. And before you know it, you're yelling about family court. See, that's all that matters anyway. You do it enough times and you're yelling about family court. But there are a lot of things that you can do that you can make things better and clearer by using this resource. So I just want to say that, Mike, I want to say it's not just touchy-feely. That's what I want to say.
Absolutely not. No. So I did not design these courses. I had some input on a number of them. I don't consider myself an intellectual, but we had some very knowledgeable. So I already mentioned Max Borders. Max has worked at the Foundation for Economic Education, Social Evolution. Very intellectual guy, understands all sorts of interesting nuances and aspects of libertarian philosophy as well as other philosophies. He and a few other guys were primarily behind putting together the curriculum and coursework. So some of the content does get pretty heavy, pretty deep.
Yep.
Like the video that you just started. It goes into things that I actually didn't even know, and I've considered myself a fairly knowledgeable, well-read libertarian for many years. So I think that even if you're somebody who understands libertarian philosophy quite deeply, there's still opportunities to learn from some of this content, like I did when I went through some of it. So, and that being said, like I mentioned just a little bit ago, we're always looking to add more courses and content. So keep an eye out, keep coming back to the site. I would imagine later this year, we'll probably have at least a few more courses on libertarianism.com.
Yes, you see it here: self-organization, self-government, personal growth and development, dynamics of political economy and public choice, knowledge, rationality, right, and critical thinking. I mean, this is stuff that you could really enjoy. Your kids could watch this too. But of all the cool things you get, you also get cool merch. I mean, come on. Not too bad. You get a human respect shirt, which is kind of cool. I like that one. But, that isn't the only one. There's a whole bunch of them. If you want to check that out, you can check the store out. Lots of them here you can see. The one that I happen to like, I like Persuasion, Not Coercion. That one I like. And I like The Rules Without Rulers. These are my two favorites of the bunch. There's a bunch of them. Those are my two favorites. I don't know, Mike, where am I going? Which ones are your favorites?
I'm a big fan of Persuasion, Not Coercion. And actually what I was going to say on that is we've been talking, going back to the new courses. And one of the things that I think libertarians that I've spoken with over the years have long lamented is that libertarians could be far more effective communicators of libertarian ideas and philosophy. So one thing that my colleagues and I have been talking about, because libertarianism.com is a project of the Advocates for Self-Government, and our bread and butter historically has been equipping libertarians with the tools and resources to be more effective communicators of libertarian ideas. We want to actually create a track on libertarianism.com for people who are libertarians and interested in these ideas, how they can actually be more effective communicators to non-libertarians,
right,
and get these ideas across in a way that resonates with them. And unfortunately, as so often is the case, it doesn't repel people or push them away further. So
I see. Okay. Kirsten says,
not coercion, but let's be better communicators and better persuaders.
Kirsten says the suggestion would be nice, especially in the mandatory starter quiz, if I could just go straight to the quizzes. They've changed that, Kirsten. When they first did it, you had to do the first one. Now you don't. Now you can go to any one you want now. That's right, isn't it, Mike?
That's right. Yeah. That should be the case, where if you register, you're no longer required to take that introduction to the philosophy of human respect. I still encourage everybody to check that one out. But you can jump around and take courses that interest you.
There we go. See, great. Chip says, good show, Larry. Thank you. So Chip likes it. That's good.
Thanks,
so,
Chip.
Shelly says something crazy. Shelly says, I have 132 foster siblings. Oh my God. Nearly half placed for no known reason. I am blown away by that, Shelly.
Wow.
That seems like impossible. I mean, I've met Shelly. I think she's telling the truth. Literally, she's a New Yorker. So I've met her more than once. So I know Shelly, but wow. That if it wasn't you, Shelly, I think you were lying to me. I mean, that is a crazy number. That's a crazy number. Wow. Anyway, sorry, we went off track again. Yes. So Ryan says, premium show, Larry Sharp. So people are enjoying it, Mike. I appreciate it. Is there anything you want to talk about before we wrap this up? Did I miss something you want to bring up?
Well, like I said, we love to hear feedback from people, especially people that are, receptive libertarians. We recognize that libertarianism.com is still an evolving. I just had a call actually before this one with some of my team members talking about development and ways that we can improve libertarianism.com. So we're definitely open to feedback. There's a lot of things that we're going to continue to do to make improvements to libertarianism.com, both in terms of course content, but also just for the user experience and ways that people can interact with it. So I would love to hear that feedback. If you have any friends, always love people sharing it, getting more people to check out the site. And that also goes for the advocates.org. Feel free to, there's a lot of improvements coming online over at the advocates.org as well that should be rolling out in the next few months.
So I want to bring up an important thing here. And that is, guys, a lot of you are online. You're on Twitter, you're on Facebook, wherever you are, Instagram, whatever you're doing. And you're fighting with people. about libertarian ideas. I know because I see you do it on my page too. So I know you're doing it, right? All this, all that. You always have a go-to if you want to. Just put in libertarianism.com. That can be your answer. You can just put that in. So someone's yelling and screaming and getting mad and whatever. Oh, you libertarians so-and-so. Okay. If you don't know what we are, libertarianism.com. Go there and you tell me what you think. It's a great way of getting people to get to the site. And if they get on the site and start poo-pooing it, that's good. Hopefully they'll share it with their friends. Say, oh, terrible site. Let them keep sharing it with their friends. Say how bad the site is. I hope that happens. That'd be amazing because people are going to get it. They're going to like it. It's going to grow. This is going to work. It is a great resource to use. It's a great place to send people who are upset, younger people, whatever the case may be. It does matter tremendously. Mike, I want to say thank you so much for coming out today.
Yeah, great to be on your show, Larry. Always a pleasure. Hopefully we'll be able to do it again at some point in the future.
100%. This is a critical way of getting people to the next level, and particularly people who are new to the movement. Absolutely. So, Caleb just popped out here. Hold on. This is Sam. I'm sorry. He said the Supreme Court refused to hear the case of teachers who were fired for refusing to vax. If we don't own the rights to our body, how can we ever be free? Oh, yeah. This is another piece I'll bring up real fast. We do have to have self-ownership. It does matter. Self-government, self-ownership, self-respect, and mutual respect. All of those things matter tremendously. So just want to bring that up because Sam watches often.
And if I could get one last word in too.
Please.
When we were talking earlier about mask mandates and social entrepreneurship, it occurred to me that I experienced, so I have a family member that was also an addict, and it was during the pandemic. And because they shut down a lot of these places because they didn't have the right policies in place in order to cope with COVID-19. There were a lot of restrictions placed on a lot of these nonprofit organizations. So he was trying to get into rehab, and they actually limited the number of beds available by like 50%. And he's living out of his car and on the streets. And he has to worry about not getting into a place where he can get treated for his deadly disease, his addiction, on the off chance that he might get a disease with a mortality rate of less than 1%, with like really a fraction of a percent. And so these are the sorts of things that, whether or not these sorts of government COVID mandates were well-intentioned, have very perverse, negative, unintended consequences. And I think actually, in my opinion, probably led to more deaths when you factor in all the different causes of mortalities and ways that it affected people negatively than COVID actually did. So
I completely agree with you. Shelly says my neighbor couldn't get help during lockdowns. Yeah, I know a lot of people that way. Why do you think there is so much violence with the mentally ill in New York City? So much. What happened? All that violence started around 2020 and 2021. What was happening during those 2 years? Yeah, it wasn't that people all of a sudden got, had more illness. It's because they weren't getting help. People who needed help weren't getting help. And the worst part is, this goes right to Sam's point. If we own our own body, we choose what risks we want to take, right? If my mom had been alive, maybe she would have chosen the risk of getting COVID over not getting help for addiction. She might have chosen that. And that's her life to choose, which she thinks is worse. Not right. It's a whole different issue. So yes, I completely agree. So anyway, we've yapped away. I kept you here too long. You got stuff to do. I get it. Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate it, guys. Libertarianism.com, or click that link right there. Head on over. Share it with your family and friends. It does matter. It is important. The more people who know this, the better off we're going to be.
Also, if you can afford to, we're a nonprofit organization, so we rely on donations. If you could spare a few bucks and want to support the cause, go to theadvocates.org and you can make a contribution there. Really appreciate your support.
Absolutely. Theadvocates.org or libertarianism.com. Remember, one is .org, one is .com. Don't mess it up. Advocates.org, libertarianism.com, or LCOM and .org. You decide how you want. I don't care. But as long as you do that, if you want to donate, please donate. buy some swag, donate, take some tests, but more important than anything else, share, 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 share. Guys, have a great night. Mike, thank you so much. I will see you all very soon.